Hello, everyone. Welcome to the episode 9 of SoLeadSaturday. The guest we have today, he did not follow what his family's business was into, but he, found out his own path and he chosen the career he was passionate about. So let's hear his career journey. How did he realize his passion and how did he manage to be one of the leaders in the areas he was passionate about? So thank you, Alexander, for agreeing
Oh,
on the time and being a guest on my Solid Saturday podcast. I
my
really
pleasure.
appreciate that.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. It's taken a lot of work to get to where I am.
Yeah.
I have three older brothers who all look down at me disdainingly 15, 20 years ago when I first started working on artificial intelligence.
Uh-huh.
When I first started working on artificial intelligence, it was not the most respected industry. And nowadays, of course, it's a buzzword. You hear it everywhere. It
Mm-hmm.
helps, startups get funding even when they don't use AI. So
Mm-hmm.
it's actually, that's a whole nother talk I give is on AI fraud. It's the amount of AI fraud I come across is amazing. And in fact, one of my very good friends runs AI for Vanguard, which is, one of the firms in the world. And Vanguard finds that
Mm-hmm.
nearly half of the people who apply for jobs
Mm-hmm.
lie about their AI experience and have close to none. It's pretty amazing. But let's get into your show and
Yeah.
talk about some stuff today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So, to start with, the first question is like, when I looked into your profile, you started your career as an analyst, then you grown into the
Mhm.
ladder of director, then you do like teach the AI and ML right now as well. You started it a couple of years ago and you still do that. And after that, you
Mhm.
formed your own organization, which is rebellionresearch.com. So you are a CEO as
Yep.
well. So what do you enjoy the most and why?
Oh, without a doubt, I enjoy education the most.
Mm-hmm.
Working on AI and machine learning with the brightest minds.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to have a bright mind, but when you have a motivated mind, a young, excited, youthful mind,
Mm-hmm.
youth is a sort of magic, if you will, that as we get older and older, we don't have as much of it, and we forget how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And to be around these motivated, for instance, at Cornell, so many of my students have such a passion for
Mm-hmm.
learning about AI in the financial markets that
Mm-hmm.
it really makes teaching them very exciting. And tomorrow night, I'll be giving my annual AI seminar. Actually, I'll do it twice a year now at Amherst College. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really a pleasure. And actually, I run an internship program through Amherst College.
Oh, that's good.
And I
Mm-hmm.
run an internship program with a number of schools. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
in 2019, RebellionResearch.com had over 50 interns
That's great.
between
Mm-hmm.
Dartmouth, Yale, Amherst, Columbia, NYU, and of course many Cornell students as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great to know actually. Maybe definitely students should reach out to you for the intern programs because that is something people always look for when they're pursuing their career. Students, especially, they try to find out the right kind of a internship for them to build their
Mm-hmm.
career. So that's good to know. When you're talking more about like, you enjoy the education system more, like teaching others. So do you feel that teaching is the best way of learning as well? Like it gives you more
Oh,
opportunity to learn
without
the
a doubt,
system?
it gives me access to the ideas of some of the most motivated members of my field. These are individuals who are trying to break in. They are passionate about machine learning, passionate about AI and finance, and
Mm-hmm.
so they have ideas that I won't come across from colleagues. And when I talk to a 55-year-old colleague, he's not going to have the same passion, but not just the passion. He
Yeah.
won't have novel ideas, novel approaches because he's been doing it a certain way. It's you can't teach an old dog new tricks idea. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yes, I learned quite a bit from my students, and I love learning.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Actually, learning is the most important aspect of actually enhancing your skills. So, moving to back to your question, actually, you already explained, like, how didn't you follow that, your family business or something? So, when you mentioned that you are not an heir, but how important it is for a person to, follow his heart, follow his interest and the passion. Why?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's when you engage in a job that you're passionate about, that you love,
Mm-hmm.
coming to work every day isn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. It's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Many people think, oh, well, if I don't make the major leagues, I don't get to play, what's fun for me. But I think, sports are for children most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Most adults aren't that stimulated by sports. I like sports, but after an hour or two, I'm bored of them. My brain needs more than sports to be stimulated, frankly. It doesn't do
Yeah.
it for me. Yeah, no, I need complex situations. I need moving parts. I need more.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily for me, AI has become a valuable industry, a growing industry, and so I've been able to work with this really exciting technology and make a living out of it. With
Mm-hmm.
rebellionresearch.com, it's a great growing business,
Mm-hmm.
and not just is it such a nice business, but it's very automated and
Mm-hmm.
runs like clockwork, which allows me to spend so much time teaching at all of these, leading schools. And it's not easy to teach at Amherst or Cornell or even Rutgers, where, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's very demanding. The students want to learn a lot and they want to know a lot. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And I found like a fantastic kind of 50-50 mix of running my firm and educating. And so that, I also have an educational blog at rebellionresearch.com. Under our research, we make money from managing clients
Mm-hmm.
in 40 countries throughout the world, but we publish not-for-profit educational research,
Mm-hmm.
over 500 pieces on everything from AI in Brazil to, dark holes in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's really just trying to be educational. And when I started teaching at Cornell, I thought it would be a great endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when you have a firm name with the word research in it, it's kind of nice to actually produce research. So
Yeah.
yeah. So the idea of rebellion research was that our AI research was novel, but now not just are we doing rebellious research, but we're also producing actual physical research. As I said,
Mm-hmm.
nearly 500 pieces in the last 3 years. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. That's great to hear actually. So when you talked about, you got an interest to the AI. So do you remember like, when did you exactly started? When did you realize it that, okay, this is the space I want to get into?
Yes, I would say that I was at the 2001 National Math Championships. I used to be a decent mathematician.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so hot anymore, but when I was younger, I was okay, and I
Mm-hmm.
was doing a gigantic problem set
Mm-hmm.
on the potential outcomes for building an airport for this make-believe city in this math
Mm-hmm.
problem. The math problem took 3 or 4 hours, and there are a number of potential answers you could have. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
thinking, if I could build a simple AI system that could learn, this
Mm-hmm.
would be actually much easier for me. And I used to program a lot, actually. When I
Mm-hmm.
was a teenager, I really enjoyed programming.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a programmer, AI is like a fantastic machine, like an outboard motor on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
And when applied well, it can work so harmoniously with the water and the boat and move you
Mm-hmm.
forward. Of course, when you use it in the wrong circumstance, it will do terribly. An outboard motor on a small boat in the middle of the ocean, that will be
Mm-hmm.
useless. As a computer programmer, the idea of this computerized machine that could
Mm-hmm.
learn simple but yet very complex data structures
Mm-hmm.
seemed obvious to me as a career, starting maybe around 2001, 2002.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great actually. So you have like a perfect combination of skills like programmer and then you have the math background, I guess, to be in this field as well. So you
Uh,
have the two strong skill set out of it, like.
Actually, I'd wanted to be a painter originally,
Oh.
an impressionist landscape painter. I really love to paint, but I had zero skill in painting. Mathematics and physics are the only things I've ever actually been good at. So I was a failed painter.
Yeah, but definitely when if you try your hands on, definitely you will get into your painting thing as well, I guess.
Yeah, I dabble here and there, but I'm so focused on what I'm doing now that you know
Yeah.
I don't. Between my daughter and my business and my teaching,
Mm-hmm.
I'm also an exercise nut,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. I'd
Yeah,
like to
that
do.
you mentioned actually, that is quite like, determinant. That shows you, that you are determined about, whatever you decide, disciplined and.
No, on Saturday I did 14 miles. On Sunday I did 13 miles. So, I like long distance. I enjoy that. It's very fulfilling
Mhm,
for me. And I like eating very healthily. I eat fruit,
mhm,
vegetables. I have nothing processed. I have no starches. I
mhm,
try to avoid salts. So I eat like a caveman with maybe a few yogurts and cheeses.
mhm,
So I'm very, very picky about what I put into my body. I only want healthy stuff.
mhm,
I gave up desserts maybe 2 years ago. So
mhm.
the only dessert I'll have is maybe some natural honey on some yogurt with some strawberries or bananas. But I don't partake in sugar foods, whether it's candy, cake, cookies, brownies. I don't eat those. I don't plan to eat them
Yeah,
ever.
you need the control. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I feel like a great sign of a leader as well, right? When it comes to those things, like when you have your control, when you are disciplined, when you are determined, and those shows like a leadership styles, like you are more into that leadership where you are always going to lead your life. So that's great to hear. There is a lot of interesting facts about you because you are like kind of a versatile profile. Like you did wrestling also, right? So yeah, so it's
Yes.
like yeah.
So I actually I got to the national quarterfinals in the U.S. wrestling tournament about 20 years
Mhm.
ago. That was back when I could bench press 400 pounds and squat 700. I used to be a very large individual, and wrestling was a lot of
Mhm.
fun for me. But yeah, no, I was a wrestling mathematician, the rare combination.
Yeah.
I always joked because most wrestlers didn't get the best grades. On my team, at least, they didn't go to the best schools. But
Mhm.
yeah, um,
Mhm. Yeah, this is definitely like something that you have like lots of interest. It seems like you tried your hands in multiple things. You more or like an explorer who wants to try and then. So thank you for sharing. And moving back, like when you were talking about the research, right, at your rebellionresearch.com. So
mhm.
anything interesting that you would like to share, like any interesting project that you guys worked on, or any kind of a proper career path, or you guys follow, like give to the students during their internship so that they get into their full-time jobs. So that would be
Of
great.
course, of course. So my interns, they fall into one of two categories. They're either computer engineers
Mm-hmm,
or they're economic researchers. And
mm-hmm,
so what we do in Rebellion Research is apply AI machine learning on the economy.
mm-hmm,
So the two halves of our technology are economics and AI machine learning. And so that's where I take those halves of the interns. And the economics interns write reports on AI development in countries around the world, and the engineering interns will write reports. And in fact, so myself and a Dartmouth engineering intern, we had a paper published also with the head of engineering from Cornell. It's in the Journal of Financial Data Science,
mm-hmm,
the winter edition.
mm-hmm,
It's myself, Professor Sasha Stoikov, and actually my head of machine learning, Han Kui,
mm-hmm,
also helped as well. And so we love to publish, but we also publish on, black holes and
mm-hmm,
edge computing, 5G, you know.
mm-hmm,
And for instance, we did a lot of reports on the Boeing 737 MAX crashes
mm-hmm,
because when you deal with AI and machine learning, you deal with smart systems.
mm-hmm,
And so smart systems are all very similar. And whether it's the Boeing's MCAS simulator
mm-hmm,
or, global economy
mm-hmm,
simulator, you're trying to apply a smart system to the real world. And
mm-hmm,
so, we did a lot of reports on the Boeing Max, and that was very gratifying. At the same
mm-hmm,
time, kind of felt like I had a calling to investigate that. Anything that I come across that I don't understand, I try to investigate.
mm-hmm,
You know, whether it's edge computing is very
mm-hmm.
exciting as well, which is localized cloud,
Oh,
and
okay.
that's where we're going to have tiny computers.
Mm-hmm,
Think of Uber, if you will. When there's a driver or when there's a passenger looking to be matched with drivers,
mm-hmm,
that local 1, 2, 3 square miles, they don't need all of the Uber drivers in that state. They just need Uber drivers in that local area. So Uber only needs local computing power. And so they don't need to store as much data. And the idea of edge computing is to take all of this cloud stuff and bring it down to
mm-hmm,
kind of a local area. And so that these and these edge computers are very, very, very cheap to install. And
Mhm.
so you can have tons of storage in just
Mhm.
a small area. And this allows for, I mean, we're at a place right now where data is multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. And
Mhm.
data storage is a significant issue. And
Mhm.
for companies to expand their capabilities,
Mhm.
they can't take all of the data the company has and just pour it at this area and pour it at this
Mhm.
area. And so, you know, they'll take a kind of a smaller sampling of the data for the various areas. And it's kind of a way of cutting up cloud computing. And so you've heard
Mhm.
about cloud the last few years a lot, but over the next few years, you'll hear about edge. And
Mhm.
edge computing is just localized cloud.
Mhm.
And for instance, think of cloud as a big, slow barge.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
but they were the first barges where you could put lots and lots of stuff to transport.
Mhm.
There was no way to transport goods on the virtual river, if you will. Then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, we had the idea, hey, let's build smaller boats that can't carry as much, but they
Mhm.
move quickly. And that's essentially edge computing, where you
Mhm.
have, these smaller apparatuses to host tons and tons of data.
Mhm.
From Verizon to McDonald's, any multinational company.
Mhm.
McDonald's, when they have they have AI now to assume their customers' drive-through order.
Mhm.
But edge computing is perfect because that local McDonald's doesn't need the information of every McDonald's customer in the world or in the
Mhm.
country or in the state, maybe just that county. And then if that customer isn't from the county, it'll jump to the cloud and
Mhm.
pull off that customer. But for the other 99% of McDonald's customers, it can pull the information directly from the edge.
Mhm.
And that's a much more efficient way of holding data.
Mhm. Yeah, that's really insightful actually. So I was like, very curious, like when I do the feasibility test for particular data model, right? I have always that question, like when I analyze that, okay, there is a benefit inside that, handling that data, building the machine learning model, and we are done with the feasibility testing. What are the real challenges actually when we think about moving to the cloud solutions, like a big data side? So
So,
would you like to provide any inputs on that as well? Already
no,
you mentioned lots of things actually.
Well, cloud is fantastic. Rebellion loves the
Mm-hmm.
cloud. We run our machine learning on the cloud. It allows anyone can run any business from anywhere. Cloud is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But when you become a much larger business like a Verizon or a
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's, or even a Microsoft,
Mm-hmm.
you have all this customer data,
Mm-hmm.
and cloud computing becomes clunky, and
Mm-hmm.
so if you want better latency, you can't be going back and forth to the cloud. Everything will
Mm-hmm.
be slower. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you want, faster results, you can use edge computing to
Mm-hmm.
make your results faster. That's the idea of edge, is just
Mm-hmm.
to speed up cloud. Cloud is becoming a little slow now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really useful and insightful actually, I felt, because I heard it first time from you that, something that is apart from looking for like only the cloud platforms, it is something more over you go for um, computational methods. So moving to the next
Yeah,
question.
no, I mean, edge is going to take off. We're talking about a whole new industry. It's going to absolutely take off. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
gigantic. Over the next 5 years, you're going to be hearing about edge computing all the
Mm-hmm.
time. It's 5G. So edge is important in 5G because in
Yeah.
5G, you're going to have a lot of localized data. And if you want to have flying cars,
Mm-hmm.
you need a lot of local data.
Yeah.
And so with the cloud, you can't keep tons and tons of data about like
Mm-hmm.
72nd Street and
Mm-hmm.
Broadway, and have that flying car
Mm-hmm.
or that driverless car
Mm-hmm.
get all of the information it needs as quickly as it needs it. Otherwise, you'll have more accidents. And so
Mm-hmm.
with driverless auto, they're going to want to put lots of edge computers all over the streets and insert
Mm-hmm.
these little computer chips so that they can have more, especially with very dense cities like Los Angeles or Chicago or New York. There's eventually going to be edge computers all over these cities,
Mm-hmm.
so that the cloud computers don't have to store 8 million cars at once,
Mm-hmm.
and only monitor 10,000 cars. And so with 5G and all of that technological breakthroughs that 5G is going to bring, it's going to be very important to make data retrieval more efficient and faster, especially because we're going to have so much more data.
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to have a need for a lot of data very quickly, but very specific localized data. A lot
Mm-hmm.
more. That's what we're finding. We don't need the whole cloud.
Yep. Yeah.
So you don't want to use the whole cloud when you don't need,
Mm-hmm.
you're not using 99% of the cloud, or even
Mm-hmm.
sometimes 99.9% of the cloud. You're using this 0.1%, this little area, and that little bit of data you can put into your edge. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I'm very excited about edge. I mean, 5-10 years ago, cloud was the next thing, and I think
Mm-hmm.
edge is obviously the next thing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Actually, this is really useful. Moving to the next question is like, when we're talking a lot more about this cloud solutions, ML and AI, any kind of a tools, technology platforms you would like audience or encourage them to learn on a priority level, like whoever is looking for like, learning this space.
Well, first of all, I tell everybody everywhere, the number one thing any interested student in machine learning or AI should do is go to Coursera and
Mm-hmm.
take Professor Angela Gu,
Mm-hmm.
probably the smartest AI professor on the
Yep.
planet's
Yep. I
courses.
agree.
Intro 1, Intro 2 to AI, Stanford. And I met Professor Gu in October, and I couldn't believe
Nice.
how kind he was. For me, he was a hero, an idol. Forget Michael
Yeah,
Jordan.
for me too. Actually, for me too. Yeah.
I've idolized him for years. I had trouble speaking. I was shaking. I was so excited when I met him.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't have been kinder. And he said, Alex, you're going to inspire a whole nother generation of AI students. I said, wow, I can't even believe you know who I am, but, awesome.
You.
And yeah, no,
Yeah.
he absolutely made my day. I'm just a gigantic Andrew Nago fan. He's just
Mm-hmm.
an amazing individual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you so much. So moving to the next question is, so you are like adjunct professor, we already discussed, and teaching machine learning for portfolio construction.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to share more about it? Like, what is that exactly?
Yeah. So, you can create your own machine learning, or
Mm-hmm.
you can get it off of the shelf. When we first started doing this 20 years ago, you couldn't access machine learnings anywhere. But nowadays, Google, Facebook, there are many platforms online where you can access machine
Mm-hmm.
learning and AI. So a lot of my students, I,
Yeah.
I think, don't even bother building it. What you want to bother doing is looking for a smart data set to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, right now, being a network architect is really where the bread and butter, the value is. Being the architect, the application of the AI, that is where the value is in, because you can find very powerful AI, for free right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not at the level of Rebellion Research. My AI was built with myself, one of Peter
Mm-hmm.
Thiel, the founder of Facebook's top guys, PhD from Quran and a teacher, and actually 2 other professors. So, our AI is very cutting edge, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to get up to 100%. You can get to 80, 90% of strength and find a data set to manipulate and create alpha. And so there's really infinite ways to apply an AI or machine learning to the financial
Mm-hmm.
markets. Whether it's a diverse portfolio or a small portfolio, there are so many ways to apply AI. And I encourage my students to fail. Tinker with things, try things out, see how they go.
Yeah.
And you'll learn more from failing than you ever will from succeeding. And I always joke, I never had a student show me a back test of an AI system that
Mm-hmm.
was ugly. They always look pretty. They always look like the AI works very well.
Yeah.
But that's the human desire to overfit. And
Mm-hmm.
so something I actually work on with that is trying to limit the
Mm-hmm.
history I give students to work on. I try to give them no more than 6 months history.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea being that they can create a system
Mm-hmm.
from a limited amount of history. Because if they get too much history, they'll try to create a system that
Mm-hmm.
just works for that history. And so, it's very important you build a system that works in all areas. And, that gets you to deep learning and reinforcement learning. We started with deep learning where we taught our machine learning how to predict the economy by feeding it various economic situations.
Mm-hmm.
So, Professor Andrew Nago taught his deep learning how to predict what a cat was in an image by feeding his deep learning 4 million images of cats. We
Mm-hmm.
fed thousands of economic situations tens of thousands of economic situations to our AI so that it could learn what factors contributed to negative and positive movements in the global economy. And so the AI could learn that a fall in copper prices would have a significant effect on Chile's economy. Of course, we know Chile has an economy with a 90% exposure to the copper industry, but the AI can see copper movements correlated with movements in the Chilean economy. And so machine learning and AI is great for pattern seeking. And so when doing economic predictions, there's a lot of patterns out there. So it becomes very difficult to find the right patterns and to not get lost on the wrong patterns, aka the noise. And so that's a lot of my classes, working with students on avoiding the noise and coming up with a smart application of AI to create alpha. So,
so do you have any kind of a best approach for, removing the noise, like for the data cleaning actually? Find like a best approach.
There's no real base case way for doing it. Limiting your data, of course. I guess, the easiest base case is just to limit your data. The number one failure I see when it comes to getting tripped by noise is a student, becoming too ambitious and trying to throw in every last thing. Maybe you can try to just create a system that can predict China based on 10 to 15 economic bits. To at least get something working, with some prediction success rate to it, before you give it 100 pieces of economic output and you're just totally lost, And so it's always better to start smaller. As Nietzsche said, you must first learn to crawl before you can walk. I don't like Nietzsche, of course, as a Jewish person. He's a huge anti-Semite, so I can't. But he said some very intelligent things, and as a worldly person, I will respect intelligent insight even by those who hate me. I think it's very important that you limit your when building an AI machine learning system, start small. Baby steps. I really can't emphasize baby steps. So I'd say if there's a base case, it's building a successful machine learning system. It starts small and grow. And once you can find success with kind of a puerile, a simple system, start adding to it. It's much easier to add than it is to take off. Because when you're taking things off, you're flying blind into the wind. I'll take this off, maybe, just maybe, Whereas when you're building, you can see a direction, and maybe you can see, oh, well, our performance is really good, except around these times. And so maybe it would help if we added these data factors, which are relevant to predicting, you know what I mean? So if you start small, you can see where your holes are. If you start big, it's like,
so it's better to start with a subset of the features and try different iterations.
Exactly.
That definitely makes sense to me as well. Like, while building the machine learning, you can't just fade everything to the machine to learn. That's true.
We were feeding our system 2,000 factors. We were feeding 2,000 unrelated economic factors. It was just too much. It was just too much for the system. It couldn't comprehend it. And not consistently either. And maybe at times you come up with some great predictions, but if you want consistent accuracy, you need to limit the data set you're working with.
So, as like, if suppose person is completely new and he does not know anything about the economic, like he does not have the domain understanding, what would be the best way to learn that particular thing?
Obviously the number of mathematics classes, statistics are extremely important. Then, you can become a basic Python programmer in 3 weeks with free online courses. And Python programming is generally the best for working with data sets. And so, everything is, you can teach yourself everything online. And so when everyone gets scared about job loss because of AI, I say that's ridiculous. The one thing that has held true consistently throughout evolution of mankind is that as we become more technologically savvy, our jobs become higher paying, our salaries become greater, and our working conditions become safer and more comfortable. With AI and technology, people who didn't have access to the knowledge and education can have access to it. They can give up their jobs, they're paid less and have poor conditions, for jobs where they're paid more with better conditions. And if they can't program, they can do other things.
Mm-hmm.
There are with more technologies, you'll have
Mm-hmm.
more availability for jobs. And that's what we're seeing now. In America, there's a million jobs for every person. If you, at this point in America, if you don't have a job, it's because you don't want a job.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, there are a million job openings in America. I know it's not the same in Canada and Europe and many other places, but in America, if you want a job, the only excuse you have for not having one is sloth at this point, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. Actually, you have a lot more to share. I don't think we are going to stick with the timeline. I might
Oh,
run a little bit ahead of time, so sorry about that. So
no, it's
moving to
okay. My
next,
wife's waiting
yeah,
for dinner
yeah,
anyways.
because you have a lot more things actually. I feel like you should share that with us. Moving to the next question, it is you are like you have like lots of things in your profile. So I saw that you are a board member of NY Food Truck Association. How did
Yes.
that
Oh,
happen to you? Like, how does it work? And
well, the New York Food Truck Association is a really wonderful organization. They're the leading trade group for food trucks in the U.S. Actually,
mm-hmm,
representing hundreds of the coolest brands, from
mm-hmm,
Luke's Lobster to this hot food truck in L.A. or this hot food truck in New York,
mm-hmm,
and thousands of members. And the Food
mm-hmm,
Truck Association, is kind of a half union, half trade group, if you will.
mm-hmm,
And the union chairman, Benjamin Goldberg, is a very close friend of
mm-hmm,
mine, and he thought I could lend some wisdom to him. And so people joke, how applicable is AI systems to food trucks? And I say, well, currently there's zero applicability, but you know um, background in philosophy and
mm-hmm.
business, and trying to be helpful when I can. But listen, I learn about the food truck business more than anything. I don't think I offer them anything. I think if anything, I go and I just learn from Ben and the food truck guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very fun, cool company. But then
Oh,
there's
that's
Flyjets, which I'm also on the board of. That's a much more technologically savvy business. It's using an online web portal to
mm-hmm,
match plane owners and plane renters and plane brokers. Think
mm-hmm,
of NetJets, but a kind of a virtual NetJets, if you will, and that's been having some great traction and really growing very nicely. And so if people think I can lend them value, I'm on a few other boards. I don't put on my LinkedIn profile. I
mm-hmm.
try to keep. If the company gets large enough, I'll add them. But if I don't want a startup or a 1-year-old
Mm-hmm.
company, I try to keep that away from my profile.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
Uh,
that's actually interesting. Like when I read that, it's like, oh yeah, this is something interesting, right? Because you are in the technology front, but still you have managed to have different interests
yeah.
alongside. So that's great. So moving to the back to our ML and AI discussion, there is a question about how do you differentiate between strong AI and weak AI, or statistical AI and classical AI?
hmm hmm Yeah, no, strong AI can find portable alpha, if you will.
Mm-hmm,
Strong AI can find patterns that exist in multiple ecosystems,
mm-hmm,
whereas weak AI will kind of find patterns when they're easy and available, and those patterns will be weaker and softer, and they won't hold up as much. They'll be more superficial. They won't be as deep. And so, stronger AI is important for a robust, consistent system that's going to last over a variety of environments.
mm-hmm.
You know, that's really what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Um, Moving to the next question is, what is the agent in artificial intelligence? That might be the basic question actually. Uh, what is the agent in artificial intelligence?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I love to point out that in fact the most prolific form of artificial intelligence on planet Earth is the dishwasher. And
Mm,
in fact, a dishwasher can run an intelligent set of instructions: hot water, cold water, release soap, rinse.
mhm,
And that's all that defines artificial intelligence. Really just a machine that can follow an intelligent set of instructions. What makes machine learning exciting, and why I've been obsessed with machine learning for 2 decades, is the preoccupation with rewriting code as
mhm,
the ecosystem changes. And so machine learning is rebuilding itself
mhm,
as it as its environment around it changes.
Mhm.
For instance, our machine learning doesn't just assume that Australia and China have the same relationship, but it sees that there's a varying relationship there, that
Yeah.
Australia is buying more Chinese goods and becoming more of a Chinese partner. And, and that's the thing with the economy is constantly in shift. And when you have an environment that's constantly in shift, it becomes really really tough, really tough. AI needs a vacuum. A dishwasher is kind of a vacuum, if you will.
Mhm.
Machine learning can start operating outside of a vacuum, if you will, where it
Mhm.
can start kind of varying it up and
Mhm.
and getting answers. And so um, I don't love deep learning, for instance,
Mhm.
because deep learning isn't as versatile, and deep learning can react to changing questions, but
Mhm.
it's not good at a changing environment. And so it's great for recall,
Mhm.
but reinforcement learning, which is what we do at Rebellion Research, is very important for being able to pivot and being able to analyze, this
Mhm.
transitioning ecosystem that's always in flow. We started with deep learning at Rebellion Research, but
Mhm.
we just found that the economy moves too fast for it.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you. So moving on to the next question is would you like to elaborate more on the machine learning based approach for stress testing, which is there in your profile as well, actually? So what is
Yeah.
that exactly?
Yeah, no, I'm teaching a class. My next class will be, I guess, in a month, for risk.net on stress testing.
Mm-hmm.
And, so much of my work with my students and work with rebellion research is on stress testing.
Mm-hmm.
And, first thing I would say is that you need a dynamic environment to learn from stress testing. You don't want to stress test something on a calm environment. You want a 2008. You want to see, the limits to what the system can handle.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important.
Mm-hmm.
After 2008, the financial crisis, my partner and I decided, hey, we had an AI that could predict financial crises. You know,
Mm-hmm.
let's build a portfolio from our AI that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't move even in times of financial crisis. And so we were able to use 2008 as the ultimate stress test to
Mm-hmm.
create this kind of very stable system. But
Mm-hmm.
stress testing is exceptionally important for building machine learning. And a lot of people think you should ignore kind of abnormal events, but
Mm-hmm.
abnormal events are exactly what you need to be learning from. That's where your system really cuts its teeth, if it will. And so,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, no, it's very important you train on abnormal events
Yeah.
for
So
stress testing.
actually, between our conversation, you were mentioning about data being varying along the period of time. So like your data keeps changing. What would be the
Mhm.
approach for making your model robust? It is always you have to retrain it, or there are any other AI
Yeah.
platforms which can do it for you.
Well, I think our AI is very powerful, and so I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to touch the actual AI itself at this
Mm-hmm.
point. We would add bits of data. We added when we launched, we did not actually have most currencies. Now we have the AI's cover something like 27 currencies.
Mm-hmm.
And when we launched, we had limited commodity data. And so, it's funny, when we launched, we had so much economic data, but we had so much other limited data. And so as time has gone on, we've been pickier with adding in good data that's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So that our system has more relevant data so that it can make more relevant predictions about the direction of the global economy. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I'd say not tinkering with the system. We're just kind of tinkering with the inputs you give it, finding better data to give it. And of course, we made a major transition from deep learning to reinforcement learning.
Okay, okay, yeah. Uh, so that is definitely useful. Moving to the next question, did you work in the speech recognition?
Sorry, what was that?
Speech recognition, like
I have actually never worked in speech recognition. No,
okay,
no, never, not at all.
yeah.
My partners have. Two of my
Mm-hmm.
partners work in speech recognition, and in fact, one of my idols, James Simons of Renaissance Technologies,
Mm-hmm.
he took, Bell Labs at the time in the 80s was the leading research
Mm-hmm.
firm in the US, and their work with speech recognition was unparalleled. And many people think that their speech recognition work is what has powered Renaissance to be the best machine learning hedge fund on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Next question is around actually, uh, I'm not sure actually, what is meant by compositional semantics?
Compositional what?
Semantics, actually, semantic analysis. Have
I
you?
don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, no, no worries. So, moving to the next question. Yeah, so you already mentioned that you are a true, true programmer. So, which programming language do you prefer?
Oh, I prefer Python without a doubt. I
Uh,
learned C++ when I was a kid, and
mhm.
Java when I was younger. But now, you have to use Python. It's really the only language you can operate machine learning with, and it's
Mhm.
definitely data.
So, what would be the best way when it comes to learning any programming language?
Oh, I just find a free course online.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't
yeah,
spend a penny. Don't spend a penny.
yeah.
Save your money.
Yeah. So moving towards the end of this podcast, actually, we have a couple of questions related to the leadership. So,
Sure.
what is your leadership style actually, being a CEO or being an professor at university, being an adjunct professor? What is your leadership style, and any leader that you always admire or get inspired by?
My leadership style is one of being kind of a soft educator, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in ever yelling at anyone. I don't like
That's
angry.
great.
I
Your
always
teacher must be
tell,
loving you there. You must
whenever
be the
it's anyone
favorite,
first year. Sorry, what?
you must be the favorite professor then.
I try. I am very popular. I've got a nice cult
That's
following, if
nice.
you
Yeah.
will. But I say, whenever someone's first year of volume research, I say, listen, I have two rules that you can never break. Otherwise, I will
Mm-hmm.
kick you out of the office within 1 second. And that is never be mean, rude, or offensive to anyone else in the office, or play video games or mess around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in video games at the office. No video games at the office, and no being mean to anyone else or rude. I don't mind if you're reading. I don't mind if you're
Mm-hmm.
reading baseball or cricket or a movie review, but no video games at the office. And I love video games. Zelda was
Yeah.
inspirational to me as a child. I love video games, but not at the office. It's just not the right place for it. And so I'd say that by example is important. My colleagues see how much I run. My colleagues see how I eat. I eat, very, 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 limited quantities of only very healthy natural foods, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to be as respectful as possible to everyone I come across. And I think that's extremely important. Um, Now, I'm part of this family, this very large, powerful family, and it's an honor. At the same time, it's also a burden, if you will. It's a burden because I have to be as respectful and nice and sweet,
Mm-hmm.
even when people aren't to me. Even when people are rude and mean and jealous, I have to be better than
Yeah.
that. It's just part of being a leader.
Yeah. And we are talking about the academics here actually. So any kind of advice that you would like to give to the students, like rather apart from academics education, how they need to build their profile and be a network, doing the networking or doing external projects or their own personal projects, how they should approach and invest their time, actually their
Well,
actual
yeah, one, you can never apply to too many jobs. I always say that. You can never apply to too many jobs.
yeah.
And two, you can never do too many projects, but
Mm-hmm.
finish your projects. Students who start projects and don't finish them are the last thing anyone wants to hire. When I come across some very energetic kid who wants this, and this, but what has he actually accomplished? That's the last person I work with. I want to work with a person
Mm-hmm.
who has an idea, wants to
Mm-hmm.
execute an idea, and complete that idea.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a failure, it's a failure. But he's come to the final. He's taken it as far as he can take it. So it's very important. That just whatever you do, your resume speaks to your ability to see things through, to be someone who finishes what they start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that clears out, like, how you find out your interns as well. You will look for their resume where it shows something that is kind of outcome rather than
Yep.
showing here and there. It's something that is focused. So that's great to know. And last question is more or like, we always see that students or the professionals who are pursuing their career or trying to switch their career or grow in that particular areas like AI or ML. What kind of advice would you like to give to them if they want to lead in that particular area, or they want to grow, or they want to pursue the education in that specific field?
Well, I would recommend building a working AI
Mm-hmm,
project, apparatus mechanism.
mm-hmm,
Show that you can use AI or machine learning in a successful manner, even if it's in a simplistic way.
mm-hmm,
You know, whatever you create that works, that's impressive.
mm-hmm,
If you have no background in it, of course, there's many free. You don't need to spend lots of money on schools. I'm someone who's not a big 4-year schools guy. I think schools are expensive and overrated. I think you can get a ton of knowledge on data science and machine learning for free online. And if you're truly motivated, the knowledge is there for you online. And if you want to set yourself apart, do a project, an interesting project, and then send your project to the people you want to work for.
yeah.
Polite, of course, but find the person, send the email, show them, hello, Mr. So-and-so from Bank of America who works on credit derivative models. I
Mm,
applied a basic machine learning to predict credit derivative swaps for the natural
mhm.
gas market. Check this out. Maybe you want to hire me for that open job you have.
Yeah,
As opposed to,
that I totally agree. Actually, being proactive, approaching to the people, and there is never like a hesitant. There should not be any hesitance actually when you are looking and trying something out. You can easily reach out to the people, and I feel this area right now, the way it is evolving, data science, AI, or machine learning, people are more helpful on the community side actually, and a lot of
oh,
material
yeah.
available online where you'll find everything like blogs or courses, like and there is a lot of collaborative learning where people are sharing their knowledge free of cost.
Yeah.
And you have a platform like GitHub where people are keeping their codes as well, like sharing it publicly. So it's like there is a lot more to learn by yourself. It's
AI machine learning is populated by people like me who are nerds. We love
yeah.
education. We love to learn. We love to teach. And so, yes, there is a lot of
Mm,
education that's out there that you can seize upon. And
mm.
so, you know,
Yeah, so
it's
it is more or like once you find your interest, definitely you find out your way out to learn it anyhow.
but I would suggest we end on a businessman who cannot be topped, Ray Kroc, the man who built McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
He always felt that persistence, above
Mm,
all else, was the difference maker in business. And I
mm,
think I must agree. As long as you have persistence, you will reach a goal. Whether it's your specific goal, maybe not, but you will reach a successful goal.
mm.
And so I really can't underestimate persistence. It's so important. It's simple, but it's the truth. You got
Yeah,
to stay
that is true
persistent.
actually. You should be a persistent. Like once you are committed, you have to do it. So
Definitely.
that's really great actually. I felt like this was like a great session for me as well. A couple of things to learn from it.
Oh,
So
my pleasure.
thank you so much for your time
Thank
and your
you.
consideration. Really, really appreciate it
Oh, thank you
being
so
there
much.
on my podcast. Thank you, and I will definitely stay connected.
I
So
look forward
I
to sharing
will,
it
yeah,
when it comes
thank you
out.
so much. And what I'm going to do is, whenever I post this, publish this, I will inform you, as well as I will tag you. So if you have anything like details which you want people to know, like if you have anything, like I already saw your rebellionresearch.com,
Yeah, the CEO of
but yeah.
rebellionresearch.com is
So
fine.
yeah, I will just simply mention that they can reach out to you always
Yeah,
on
yeah.
LinkedIn or rebellionresearch.com. So thank you so much
My pleasure.
and have a wonderful evening.